Thank you all for joining us in this webinar of the Jerusalem Press Club, JPC, with General Amos Yadlin, President of INSS, the Institute for National Strategic Studies, who will speak about the exit strategy INSS has developed for the coronavirus crisis. I want to thank Gal at INSS and my colleagues at JPC for facilitating this webinar. General Yadlin will start with a short introduction and then we'll open up for Q&A. You are on mute, so please type your question on chat and he will answer them. Either he read them or I'll read them aloud, whatever is best. Major General Amos Yadlin served as IDF Chief of Military Intelligence. Prior to that, he served as IDF Attaché to the United States, commander of the IDF Military Colleges and National Defense College, Deputy Commander of the Israeli Air Force, Commander of 2 fighter squadrons, 2 air bases, fought in the Yom Kippur War operation, or first Lebanon War 82, and was one of the 8 pilots in Operation Tammuz, the destruction of the Osirak nuclear reactor in Iraq in 1981, almost 40 years ago. Major General Yadlin earned a BA with honors in economics and business administration from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and he also holds a master's degree in public administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. General Yadlin, please.
Thank you, Uri, for reading my CV, but my CV is not so relevant to what I'm doing now. My expertise in the last 10 years is policy and strategy in the wide aspect of it. And we are coping with a crisis that our good experience and our good intuition is not helping us to understand immediately. If we would have gone to a third Lebanon war, or we have to destroy a third nuclear reactor, we know how to do it, and we have good models how to deal with it. The model how to cope with corona, which is a real national security threat, is not there. Israel, like many other countries, reacted in the containment phase basically in the right time, trying to block the country from having the corona entering the country and trying to trace every case after it was discovered. But what we see in the last couple of days is that we lost control of containment and we are in a different phase of war. And this war is not only a health war. There are other more important, or at least as much important, parameters of national security power that we are now losing. And I basically look at the economy because this is easy to measure, but there is more about society and the resilience and how people behave in time of contingency and emergency. We look at the media every day on every new case on corona. Somehow we are not looking at other people who die in the health system because it's concentrated on corona. And we are not looking at the damage to the economy, the number of GDP percentage that we are losing every month. And this is also something that may be exponential, very much like they are predicting about the disease. You're losing 4% GDP in the first month, 8% in the second month, 16% in the third month, and a huge crisis is happening. So the media is not showing us the million people that are now unemployed, 25% of the people. They are only concentrate on number of corona cases. They are not showing us the 500,000 the 500,000 of businesses that are closing, and the next month they will be bankrupting. And what we are in the INSS are now trying to suggest to the government to look at the two graphs in the same time. The graph of number of people who are severely sick, because this disease, most of the people are not severely sick, and most of the people are whether take it very easily or they don't have symptoms at all. And in the same time, look at what's happening to the economy. We want to avoid two crashes, two explosions, two disasters. One is a health disaster. If the number of people who need ventilation is above the number of ventilation in hospital, ventilation beds in hospital, and we want to avoid a crash of the economy. We think that we take a huge margin on the health. We have 2,200, maybe 3,000 ventilation places, and only 100 are employed. And on the economy, we are putting in a curfew, in a quarantine, people who are healthy, young, and can go and basically save the economy. So we are saying we have now 10 days until the end of Pesach. We can wait 10 days, but in these 10 days, we have to prepare 3 plans, depending on how the health graph will go up. If our calculations that it will not go the way it went in Italy or in the US, who reacted very, very slowly, and we are controlling it in 100, 200, 300, then we have to go and prepare how we are sending into the labor market the most important people in the high-tech industry, in the industries that are producing most of what Israel is producing. I'm not sending yet people to sports stadiums, not even to shopping malls. But differentiation is the name of the game. Differentiation on base of geographical sickness, differentiation based on the utility to the GNP, to the economy, GDP, and differentiation on how much you expose to corona. We are not health expert, but we in the INSS produce this plan based on learning with a lot of hospital managers, experts for public health, and we think that it's about time to widen the Israeli government looking at it through a very narrow straw of number of corona people who are sick. Stop here.
Okay, so you ran a simulation of the program. Can you share the results with us?
The simulation, that couple of different simulations. There is a simulation of epidemic spread, and you need to put forward the number of people who are not going to be sick, who are young, don't have any background sickness. If you take the right parameters, we predicted from the very beginning that let me say it in English in the right, the very pessimistic predictions that that the Prime Minister adopted from the health ministry were too much higher than the real numbers. This is the medical simulation. Then we did a simulation on cabinet how the cabinet should be run. Not only the Director General of Health Ministry and the Prime Minister. You don't go to war with one professional level and one leader. You go to war with a very wide, interdisciplinary staff work that create alternatives, and you do it with an inner cabinet that based on 5 or 7 ministers and not the whole government or the Prime Minister alone. This is not the way to go to a war against such a threat. And the last simulation is saying, let's take the sectors of the economy and the geography. In a way, what happened in Bnei Brak is not contradicting our model. In a way, it's even making it more clear that there are places that should be a quarantine. There is people and population above your age, Uri, that should be stay at home, but there are a lot that should be go out. And we protect those who are vulnerable, and we let those who are not vulnerable and behave with certain rules, because the Israeli public show very well that they are disciplined if they trust what they are told in the news, in the media. And if they will get instructions that will be trusted, I sure they can go back and restart the economy and still having the masks and 2 meters from each other, and still 70% of the economy can come back, and not as today, 15%, which is unacceptable.
Regarding the second simulation, you mentioned the way the cabinet should have run it. We hosted the General Gil Island, a few days ago, and he was very critical of the way this crisis is managed. He said the whole handling of the crisis should have been switched to the home front or homeland command, which was created specifically for these kind of crises. Do you subscribe to this view?
Absolutely. Gil Island is an expert in national security, a very, very good thinker, and he has an experience. He was the national security advisor. And he knows what every serious Israeli knows, that in this country, we have a huge organization called IDF that was trained and is doing his purpose. His objective is to cope with wide uncertainty, huge threat. We have the best people there. We have the best thinkers there. The system is ready to cope with earthquake or shelling of Hezbollah missiles. And the professional guidance should come from the health expert. We are not trying to say that they don't have their professional knowledge, and we will adapt it. But the defense should take the lead on most of the activities. What you see today, the Prime Minister is saying 15,000 tests will be done, and nothing is done because the system don't know how to make plans according to the strategy, to have command and control, to make sure that it will happen, to get feedback, to correct the plan. This is what defense experts and generals are doing all their life. And we are paying a lot for having a very weak, untrained, unprepared health system to deal with something that the military would have done much better.
So a question, did you present your plan to the government, and do you expect, based on the far from satisfactory situation of management right now, that it will be adopted or implemented?
We belong to many, and this is some good news about the Israeli society. you see groups and teams everywhere, in the academia, in Weizmann Institute, in the Technion, in all kinds of forums. People are creating teams based on knowledge from the health system, doctors, experts for dealing with uncertainty, for intelligence, technological solution, how to make the tests. And people are, there is, I think, hundreds of groups that working. We do have access to the National Security Council. We do have access to some of the leaders of Israel. We put forward our ideas, but I guess there is some others. The main argument I'm making now, I'm not criticizing the fact that you did the containment in a very aggressive way, but we have 10 days to plan to the end of Pesach, the exit strategy. Because if we wait, according to what the experts on health are saying, that the number of new cases will be 10 new cases a day, and only then we release the population, we doom ourselves to a self-destruction for months, many months, until the end of the year. And we cannot afford it. We cannot afford it. We are going, Corona is not going to disappear until we find a cure or immunity. And we have to manage our life in the presence of Corona, but keep it in the lowest level based on those who are not infected easily going out, and those who are in danger stay home. But the economy should continue. Otherwise, how can we support all these people when they sit at home? It will be a political and social disaster beyond the economy.
Earlier today, we hosted Professor Uri Alon from Weizmann Institute, and he developed a kind of innovative model, mathematical model, by which people should work 4 days and then 10 days should stay at home. What is your plan of reviving the economy? And what are the stages you foresee?
Yeah, we know his idea. We look at it. Mathematically, it makes a lot of sense. It is more difficult to control and to plan it. But I don't care what kind of plan it will be. I only want to measure that the GDP is going up and the number of unemployed is going down. There's like 5 plans. The problem is that nobody deal with the time that come after Pesach, and we have to have another strategy than what we have today. It depends very much on the number of tests. If there was a better test, it was very easy to release people because, you know, maybe they already were sick. So it's time for them to go out. They are not in danger anymore. They are not going to infect another people. So because the test is not working, once again, a health ministry failure, we have to find some mathematical models that will compensate for the fact that we don't have a wide program for testing. The idea is decide that you have to start and release. In the first place, release 200,000 people and see what is the reaction, because there is a huge margin here. If we release too much and our calculation were too optimistic, you take them back like Singapore have done, but not with hysteria.
You think we are overreacting here? I mean, once the containment phase succeeded, you say, we are now overreacting?
We are looking only at 1% of the problem. There is thousands of women with breast cancer that will not be tested because everybody concentrates on Corona. there is a lot of people that will have heart attack because they are not doing the treatment they need. And I think looking at the corona victims as the only parameter important is a huge mistake, a huge mistake. I'm not talking about the million unemployed that may say that their life are not worthwhile anymore. And you cannot have a national policy that based on saving every patient, every sick corona patient. It's you have to, when you are in a leadership position, you have to look wider. And I think now we have, as I told you, a huge margin of ventilation machines, and we can take more differential policy that will save the Israeli economy and the Israeli society.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that your strategy is very general, like release and see what happens, because you're looking now at too narrow angle, and you don't have a concrete plan.
I have a very concrete plan. I think I told you already, it's based on 3 dimensions. You live in Jerusalem, you
Yes.
are above 70,
Yes.
you are not living, and you are not in a economic position that will contribute a lot to the GDP, right? You
Right.
stay in your home.
Okay.
But your daughter, which is young, which is contributing a lot to the GDP, and she is living in Herzliya, she will go to work because in Herzliya there is no epidemic. It's in Bnei Brak and Jerusalem. So I have 3 criterions, and somebody has to take all the sectors of the economy, all the people according to their health background and their age, and geography. Take the 3 of them together and make a plan. We have it, but we don't have the authority to say this is the plan.
Yes, but did you present it to Prime Minister Netanyahu or people who make the decisions? And if so, what was the reaction?
I haven't presented it to Netanyahu. As I told you, the people he's seeing are mostly doctors and managers of hospitals, but his people in the National Security Council got a presentation, and I think once again in the next couple of days more and more people will understand that this is the only way to treat this disease.
I understand that the Ministry of Strategic Affairs has also come up with some plan. Are you aware of it?
I'm aware of it. I know there are 5 models. Most of them are, I can agree with. There are a couple of parameters like lifting the restrictions in the same orders that you have done it before. I don't think this is the right policy, but they already understood it, that they have to have an exit strategy, and I spoke with them and they know our reservations, but their policy is a good policy.
I have a somewhat philosophical question. There's a lot of talk about how this crisis will change the attitudes of people, the way they look at life, the way they look at each other. But something which connects to what you're doing, looking at national strategic affairs, the capability of a country to prepare for a crisis like this, do you think something will change, or we'll see, even in this crisis, the same politizations of everything?
Uri, you and I were in a couple of crises, from Yom Kippur War to some economic hyperinflation, the second Lebanese war. I'm not a supporter of an investigation committee. I don't want to hang anybody in the town square. I want to learn. The question for us, the challenge for us, is to learn the right lessons from this crisis. This crisis is a black swan. The definition of black swan is that the chances of it to happen is once in 100 years, or maybe 50 years. And on the other hand, when it's happened, the damage is huge. So I'm not saying that from this day we will change everything. But we have to learn what we have done right, what we have done wrong, where we were prepared, and change some allocation of resources, some organizations that deal with it, and the learning process for Israel, how it's handled the coronavirus crisis when it will be over in 2021 somewhere, is very important to cope with other black swans that may appear 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
But you're not for a commission of inquiry because they are politicizing the whole thing and they're only looking for people to blame.
Absolutely. I'm not for the blaming game. I'm for the learning game. And leaders should take decision in, this is the quality of good leader that differentiate him from bad leader, that he know how to take decisions in time of uncertainty, and in the same time, manage the risks, and S is important, not only the health risk, but the economy risk, the social risk, and at the end of the war, to have a debriefing. Now I remember that we were together in the Air Force. And what is the Air Force beauty? That you have debriefing every afternoon. And the second lieutenant can tell the squadron commander, you have done a mistake here in the dogfight. So if we will not blame the squadron commander, but we will learn from the mistake for next time, and I hope it will not come soon, then it's part of the gains and the opportunities. I have to go, but there is a lot of opportunities after this crisis will over, and maybe we'll discuss it in another time.
Okay, General Yadlin, I want to thank you very much for taking the time and for, as always, illuminating the perspective. Later this evening, 7 p.m., we'll host Dr. Shafir Botner, Director of Paramedic Education Center at Magen David Adom, and heads up for tomorrow, 11, with IDF spokesman for the Foreign Press, Jonathan Kornikus. Thank you all for being with us. Bye-bye.